For your job, you've shown up early, you've stayed late, and you've given 100%. You've been reliable for someone else, but now it's time to become reliable for yourself. In today's episode, I'm breaking the myth that most people don't know how to go all in for something. We're changing perspective. I'm giving you a couple steps you can use today, this week, and you already know that you're going to leave here with more value than what you came with. And with that being said, I want to welcome you to episode 24 of Everything Entrepreneurship, the podcast with Kyle Jerome Carter, the place for ambitious employees, working professionals, those climbing up that corporate ladder, and my working entrepreneurs as well. This week, I'm going to keep the episode short. I was in my groove last week, and whereas it was a lot of value, I'm working on being more efficient with it. So let's see how short or how long we can keep this video to this week. Now, as we start off with every episode, I want to give a big thank you to everybody that's been supporting the podcast, from the subscriptions on YouTube to everybody sharing the actual podcast to friends and family, and even streaming it on Spotify or Apple Music. I really appreciate your support. I'm really excited to be building this community out, and I want to just keep on showing up each week to continue giving you as much value as possible. So with that being said, I'm going to be efficient this week. Let's dive into the episode, and I'm glad that you're here. So with that being said, let's get into the episode. And what I find is it's a simple perspective shift that it takes for somebody to understand they can actually flip the switch to go all in for themselves. I'm going to break down the surface level as well as a little bit deeper, and then I'm going to give you some actual practical tips that you can do today, some actual tips that you can execute this week so you can see a difference. And I always preface like this topic when I'm helping somebody in like a one-on-one consultation with this story. Let's go back to 2018, 2019, back when I was at the dealership, right? I was working at Mercedes-Benz at the time, and I had a coworker named Chris. And Chris was very just energetic, bounce around, He had he had strong character and a real personality. You can't miss Chris when he walks into a room. And I remember one time he had a reaction to some food. I think he was like bloated or something like that. And he was like, oh no, I can't do this. I can't eat this food if it's going to cause me to be bloated. Now, granted, he played football, like in the rest of the world, football, soccer. He played soccer after work with this club. And he basically said, it'd be a hindrance to me if my body isn't working at top capacity. So I got to cut this out. And I was wondering, I was like, I think that's so cool that you can literally just make a decision. You cut out this food and you're sticking with it. And I remember saying to myself, and I said to him, I said, that's pretty cool. I wish I could do that. And he just brushed it off, whatever it might be. And then for the next week that stood with me, I was wondering, I'm like, something just didn't sit right. I wish I could do that. How come I can't do that? And then it went from how come I can't do that to, I think I can do that. And what I mean by do that is flip a switch. Like he was able to make a commitment in that moment to give up something that he loved or that he really liked for the betterment of himself and his body. And whereas initially I was saying, I wish I could have that conviction, it took me about a week before I realized, you know what, I can. And I'm going to get into how this translates to business in a moment. So with that being said, I was going to the gym quite frequently. Like I said, my after work routine, my 5 to 9 after work, I would go to Barnes & Noble's for about an hour or two. And then from there, I'd go to the gym, right? So I'd be going to the gym about 5-6 days a week sometimes. And I was in good shape, but I felt bloated as well. Like by no means was I fat or overweight. But I just realized I wasn't as healthy as I could be. So I said, you know what? I'm overcomplicating this. This is that simple. I'm going to make a decision to cut out all these different foods, and I'm going to do it for 2 weeks. Or I think I said 15 days. I said, I don't want to do this for a month. I want to do this for 15 days and see what happens. Right? So I remember looking up all the different diets, vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, carnivore, like all the different diets that are out there. And I was like, man, these are complicated. I don't want to be too extreme, but what I do want to do is I want to be able to have some of these foods, but I also want to have something significant enough that I can say I cut out a big chunk of these foods and these different food groups, right? So I basically had a glorified version of pescatarian, or vegetarian with a splash of pescatarian for the most part. I cut out all dairy. I cut out all wheats. I cut out a huge chunk of stuff. No more beef, no more chicken. The only meat I would eat was fish, right? And knowing me, I love name schemes. I called it the Dromatarian diet. And I said, for the next 15 days, I'm making a commitment to cut out all these foods. I'm going to still work out and I'm going to put myself in a better situation so that my body can feel better. And what's crazy is I still have the picture that I took because I had it on my wall back at the dealership, and I was checking off each day, and it had everything. And I always had a quote that I always associate with a challenge that I'm doing. And after about 2 days, I started realizing, like, golly, this is hard. Like, everything has everything that I'm not supposed to be eating. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it was really like literally just vegetables with salmon. I couldn't have any donuts because I had egg in the dough. I couldn't have so many different things. And I remembered on around like day 3, day 4, I was like, this is my own thing. Nobody's gonna know if I break this and I just add in one more thing that's on this list. I can change it, or I can just cheat. Like, the only person that's gonna know is me. But what I'm proud of myself in that moment, I was able to take hold of that impulse and say, no, I made a decision to commit to this, and I'm going to follow through. Right. And with all that being said, I stuck with it. I found different things that I could cook, and my body was actually transforming. Like, I want to say after about 5-6 days in the gym, I just felt lighter. I felt more healthy, could breathe better. And again, by no means was I overweight or anything like that. But by sticking to this diet, I was able to reap the benefits instead of cheating myself. And I was able to understand that I was lying to myself, or I was giving myself excuses. Like in the past, when I would say, oh, I can't do that. I could, and I did, and I was able to follow through. And that's something that you're able to do as well. So when we look at why somebody can rise up the ranks of their job, why they can commit themselves to their boss, their supervisor, to impress the owners, the executives, they can follow the job promotions and raises, and they can go all in. But when it comes time that they're off work and it's time to go all in for themselves, there's such a big disconnect. So like I said, we have to look at the surface before we can look a little deeper, right? So the main things, or the main reasons why somebody won't be able to follow through and go all in for themselves is because we stay loyal to jobs, but not to ourselves. For example, like, your job gives you a system that you can follow. There are clear stakes as to what happens if you don't perform, whether you get written up or whatever it might be. There's a structure that was built for you. You didn't have to create it from scratch. And there was always somebody else expecting you to show up, right? So if we take a moment to just dive a little bit deeper into each one. You were given systems to follow. Chances are, at your job or at your workplace, whether you've moved up or whether you just started, they're giving you a policy and procedure, a standard operating procedure. Hey, this is everything your job entails. This is how your days need to be laid out. And you follow that. If you have a more senior or more managerial rank, you might be able to switch some things around, maybe delegate a thing or two. But for the most part, what you do stays within the realms of what you're going to, or what you're expected to do. Nobody's coming up to you and saying, hey, how do you think your day should be set up next quarter or next year? It's a very clear set expectation. This is what you need to do, right? And by doing that, you don't have to waste activation energy in creating a schedule or creating structure that you need to fit in. You just show up and you do it. There are clear stakes of what will happen if you don't perform. If you mess up, or if you do something intentionally, you could be fired, you could be written up, you could be reported. There's a very clear distinction of what you can and cannot do. And if you don't show up, if you show up late for a meeting, It might be a slap on the wrist. Somebody might not notice it. Somebody might not call it out. If you don't show up for a client or you procrastinate something, when you have to go all in for yourself, nobody's holding you accountable but yourself, because 9 times out of 10 it's your company. Even if you partner up with somebody else, a friend, a family member, a coworker, when it comes to like not following through on what it is, the task that needs to be done, who's going to fire you if it's your company? Who's going to write you up if you're just getting off the ground? And this is one of the mental shifts that people don't necessarily make, because at a job, if you clock in, if you go rogue, you could be fired. You could be written up. You could be demoted. There's a lot of repercussions, not just rewards, but repercussions for if you don't follow through on not only the things that you said you were going to do, but show up for the things that you need to be there for and to grow in your position on a day-to-day basis, right? And if we look at structure was built for you, that goes back to the first point. 9 times out of 10, unless you're the person that's creating it for the company, like, you don't have to think more than what you need to fit in. Like, it's literally like a puzzle piece. We need you to fit in this spot. We don't need you to move over here or change this or change that. Just fit within your spot and do that to the best of your ability. That's all you're expected to do, right? Some people might say that their job or their employer expects them to go above and beyond, but that's a conversation for another day. By having that structure each day, you're not guessing. And when somebody is not necessarily, they quit their job and they're out on their own, but even when you're off work, you find that you don't have the same structure, right? That's one reason why in the masterclass that I do each week, I'm so huge on building momentum early on so that you can follow through, and so that following through feels natural. And if you don't follow through, something feels off. You were given the structure there at your job, but you have to give your structure when you're actually working for yourself. And there was always somebody expecting you to show up each morning when you wake up and go to work, or even if you log into Zoom or Teams, whatever it might be, there's people expecting you to be there so that they can ask you questions, so that you can deliver a report, so that you can follow through on what's needed. Because you have this, not just accountability, but responsibility, and because you're obligated to, because you work there, you have to show up. You're not giving a choice. But when we try to, for example, do that for ourselves in our free time, we lack the structure, right? Imagine you got a glass cup that you're pouring water into. It's very clear the shape that that water is going to go into, opposed to trying to grab water with your hands. There's so many different holes. There's no actual structure. It's not built with intent to keep it. It's just doing what it can. And because of that, obviously you can see you're going to lose the liquid. You're going to lose water if you're just using your hands, compared to if you have a proper container with the proper expectations of the shape it's going to take, right? So that's more so if somebody puts a little bit of thought into it, they're going to come up with, right? Now, if we shift gears and we go a little bit deeper to really get behind to get deep into the why going all in for me is so hard, why it's so hard to make that shift, why it's so hard to commit and not go back. These are the main things that tend to come up in a person's day to day. Again, bridging off of the first half and going into this, there's no boss forcing you to show up, right? You're scared to waste your own time, energy, or money. Like, you don't want to be disappointed in yourself. And it's easier to execute for someone else's vision than to trust your own, right? So let's break these down the same way we just did. As I was just building upon the last point that I said, there's no boss forcing you to show up. You are your boss. And chances are, when you say that you're going to do something, if you don't do something, you're not going to hold yourself accountable as if you were an employee that's getting paid, right? And it takes a very strong mental state to do the work. Again, what do I always say? 2 things you need to follow through and make money in a profitable side hustler business. You have to have the right mindset, and you have to actually do the work. Well, you can have the right mindset and not do the work when it's time to do the work. Because, and this one plays into both, you don't have the right mindset if you are expecting to move when somebody else tells you to move. This is all on you. Nobody is saying, hey, we need you to start this side hustle. We need you to create this second form of income, and it's all riding on you. Don't forget you said you were going to do this. No, it's on you. If you said you're going to do something, you have to do it. And if you don't do it, nobody's going to hold you accountable except for yourself. Thing number 2, you're scared to waste your time, energy, and money. Getting into entrepreneurship, let's break it down a little bit. Even starting a side hustle, you have no intention to get an LLC. You just literally need to plug and play something that somebody else said is going to work in your free time so you can make some more money, right? Unlike your job, and I find that my professionals that have been in their position for a long time struggle with this more than the people that are just starting out or at that low level, right? You know that if you put in 40 hours a week, if you put in 80 hours pay period, if you put 160 hours for the month, that regardless, you're getting that paycheck. So you know that you're working towards something, and regardless of if you do well or if you do or if you don't, that there's a guarantee for the work that you did in the form of a financial gain, which is a paycheck. Even if your salary, and it's not about just the hours that you're working, you know, and your employer knows, you put in this work, you're getting the money, you're getting something for your time, right? So the mindset shift, the perspective shift that needs to happen is not having an expectation of, all right, I got the night and I got a weekend. I'm going to put in this time and I'm expecting money out. More so when you're first starting out and you're building something. And even more so than that, when you're first getting your mistakes and you're stumbling along. People stop or they feel deterred because they don't see the return. Their return on investment sometimes is financial, but more than that, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's energy, it's mental. You've exhausted your mental resources. You've exhausted the time that you said you didn't have. You've exhausted your little side money that you tapped into, and you don't see a return on that investment. And people get deterred because it's like, oh man, this isn't worth it. Like, you can't be afraid to waste your time, energy, and money if you're pushing beyond your job to create an inflow of money. Remember, we're earning money. We're not just making money out of nowhere. You're not chopping down a tree, making some money. You're earning money in the form of a product or service for somebody else, another individual, right? And that building period until you get to that consistency, sometimes even your first couple transactions, if it feels like, is it worth it? But entrepreneurship, there are no guarantees, right? When I first started out doing more so stuff for my personal brand, I let people know, and again, this bridges off very much from my company, like just the mindset. And I let people know, they're like, hey, well, your consultation's a little expensive. Is there any like guarantee or anything like that? And granted, I didn't say it this rash or this direct, but I basically said, no, like you're getting into entrepreneurship, it's a risk, but the same way it's a risk, it's an opportunity. And you have to see it that way. When I start a business, all the businesses that I've started, there's no guarantee when I say, okay, cool, I'm gonna buy this software. Okay, I'm gonna run this campaign. Is there a guarantee? There's no guarantee. The guarantee is that I'm gonna get R&D, I'm gonna get research and development. The guarantee is that I'm gonna learn through this. The guarantee is that regardless of what happens, I can grow, I can position myself, my company in a better position so that we can replicate the successes, so we can learn from the failures. That's the guarantee. Now, granted, most people aren't that receptive to that, so I've had to throttle it back just a little bit. But it's true that there is no guarantee. And that's one reason why, especially in this guru space, what do I always say? The people that get burned from a 997 course, or the people that get burned from investing $5,000 in a coaching, a lot of the onus is on them to do the work. The person will supply the perfect framework to plug and play. If you don't do the work, it's not their fault. If they provide the course and you don't follow it, it's not their fault. As you can see, I'm putting parentheses. I'm being a little sarcastic because people are set up for failure if they don't have the proper expectation getting into entrepreneurship. And that's why we're here. That's why I'm doing Everything Entrepreneurship for you. Setting the proper expectations and making sure that you have what you need to get the momentum so that you can do the work, so you can become profitable, and so you don't get burned like them, right? Let me get back on track. You don't want to be disappointed in yourself. Most people, I was going to say most employees, but most people are employees. So I can still say most people because it's true. Most people are terrified of failure. More so than being terrified of failure, more people are terrified of what people are going to think about their failure. Newsflash, most people aren't worried or concerned about what you're doing. The people that are might be your immediate friends and family, and even still, they're hoping for the best for you, right? I'm not talking about the superficial people, the people that are coming passing. I'm talking about the people that are in your corner, the people that support you. So you can't be disappointed in yourself if you don't succeed in your first, second, third attempt. Again, there's only a percentage of people that make it all the way through and become profitable and have these full-fledged, thriving businesses. And it takes a lot to get past that first, second, third attempt if it doesn't work, to push through that, to learn so you can get on the right track. And as you grow as a person, you understand better that you can't be disappointed in yourself. If anything, you should be so proud of yourself that you went out there, that you put yourself out there, that you committed to something, that you did something. You did more than just what you were going to clock in and clock out for. It's a perspective shift that most people fail to realize until it's too late. It's towards the end, if they do make it, or when they start to try to get back on the horse into something else, they think, man, I really should have given myself more grace. Of course, you should have given yourself more grace. You're not doing this for no reason. You're doing this for a better life. You're doing this for a better version of you. More than likely, you're doing this for a better situation for you and the people around you. It might be for your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. It might be for your kids, your parents, your whatever it might be. I guarantee, especially if you're watching this far right now, you're not doing this just for you. You're doing this for somebody else as well. So don't work against yourself and beat yourself up. Don't be afraid of being disappointed if something doesn't work. Change the perspective and understand that you can learn from this. And as you learn from this, you can earn from this, because you will start making money and you will start to make consistent money. And as you do that, you're going to become better at your product or service. You're going to get the reviews, you're going to get the word of mouth, and you can grow this. I'm trying, don't take for granted that how I'm simplifying this, because it's not something complex. Doesn't necessarily need to be simplified all the time, but it's all about your next best step. And after a step, whether you feel like it's good or bad, take a moment to have some grace and say, you know what, I'm doing good. I'm moving forward, and that's what it's about, right? And then the last point I said was, it's easier to execute for someone else's vision than to trust your own. When push comes to shove and it's time for you to actually follow through and do what you need to do, you'll find that you can easily, energetically do the work for the person that's paying you than in your free time, quote unquote free time, because it's only a matter of time before it gets disrupted, because we have real lives. When you have to think and you reflect, like, dang, am I really gonna do this? Right? A real example. And I found this early on. When I had a job, okay, cool. Well, I'm here. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm here for 8 hours, sometimes 9. I can still get this done. The moment the weekend comes, or after work, sometimes, like I said at Barnes Noble, when it's time to do work for me, I'm like, I could do a little bit, but I wasn't going all in. Going all in requires that shift. It's an immediate decision. It's not something that happens over time. And by having an understanding that you have to, it's not even about loving yourself, and you have to respect yourself. Again, remember what you're doing this for and act accordingly. You're making yourself proud by moving forward, by saying what you're going to do and following through on that, right? So again, that's like surface level, and that's a little bit deeper level, right? So now let's transition into what you can actually do today or this week to make some change. Now, I wrote this down so I can make sure that I'm efficient with what I give you. Again, I'm trying to stick to these points though I feel like I've been going for a while already. Here's how you can start making that perspective shift, right? The first thing is systems. You want to own your routine and rituals, but the only way that you can do that is by being aware of what it is you do on a day-to-day basis. Take an audit of your time. This week, regardless of when you watch this, hopefully on Monday, because that's when the episodes come out, make sure you set up your reminders. But you're basically going to start wherever you are and say, what did my day look like? Don't be biased. Don't be hard on yourself or not hard on yourself. Just document what you do. And for 1 week, look at this is where my time goes. Because we can't block out time to dedicate towards ourselves and towards our side hustle or business unless we know what we're working with. You have to take into account how life can happen. Life can hit. Emergencies happen. Things come up. People need your attention. You have to respond to this text. You got to go here. Like whatever it might be. But by documenting and taking an audit of your time for the week, you can set yourself up for success by understanding where those pockets are, where that free time is going to come into play, right? Structure, like real deadlines in your 5 to 9 framework. Now that we've blocked out time because we audited our time, now you're going to give yourself actual deadlines. I'm going to start by this time. I'm going to end by this time. And my reset framework that I teach each week in the Employee to Entrepreneur Masterclass, I go over this in much more depth, but you truly need a realm in which you can operate in, dedicated to you, like phone on do not disturb. But you get what I'm saying. This time is dedicated towards what you need to do, but you have to create a deadline as to when it starts, when you shift out of what you're doing to start, and when you actually finish, right? You need real stakes. You need personal consequences. You need personal consequences or rewards. If you follow through, if you say you're going to do 3 days a week and you do 2 days a week, what's going to happen? What are you going to take away from yourself? It's not about being a masochist and giving yourself pain and crying like, oh my goodness, I just got rid of this. It's about having an understanding of if you slack off, what's the consequence? If I don't follow through, then I can't go out with my friends. If I don't follow through, I'm not going to have my favorite dinner. I'm a cook. I'm going to stay home and cook, save money. I don't know how that's a bad thing, but you have to create something, right? And safety. You need support that doesn't just tell you keep going, but helps you grow. You're going to have that one person that you can depend on to hold you accountable. That can say, hey, did you start like you said you were going to do? Hey, tell me how it went when you did this thing. Hey, you got this. Remember, you can do it. And most people have a support system of some capacity. Even if you only have one person, use that person. Say, hey, can you just send me a text message on this day or at this time? Or this is what I'm doing. Hold me to it. And if for some reason you don't have that person, I'll be that person. Message me on Instagram at kyle.jerome.carter and say, hey, listen to the pod. I need help with that support system. And let's see how we can hold you accountable, because you can do it. And it really is not only another level of accountability once you say that you're going to do it to somebody else, because there's a weighing sense of I need to do this now so I can follow through. But also when you know that somebody's there in your corner to say, hey, you got this. Not to just be a yes man, but to say you messed up and you need to follow through this time. Like you can do this. And basically that's what you're going to do once you make that strategic perspective shift of saying, you know what, I can go all in, right? But you might be asking, all right, KJC, I hear you. You're making sense. I let you cook and you're cooking, right? But I need you to bring it home. I need you to plate this for me, nice and clean. When I make this perspective shift, this is how I follow through on it. But what do I do if I don't know how to make the perspective shift? And that's great that you or somebody out there is thinking that. And the only thing I can tell you is you need to make a change. There's a quote that says, nothing changes if nothing changes, right? Every day passes, you're not getting younger. The world is getting crazier. Things are getting more expensive. And you've probably said that you were going to do this before. Now is the time to follow through on that. Get out of your mind, get out of your head when you get these doubts or you think about past instances when something didn't happen or went wrong, or just thinking, oh my goodness, like this, I can try, but no, don't try, do. Whenever I'm working out with a friend, even if I'm working out with my girlfriend and it's time for them to do the first rep, I let them know, you're not attempting to move the weight. You move that weight. That's in your head. I'm moving this weight. I'm not saying something that's going to get somebody injured by jerking or yanking or anything like that. It's a mental shift before you start that says, I'm not trying my best to move it. I'm moving this weight. And that's what you're doing. You're moving that switch into the position it needs to be so that you understand that you can do it. It's not about you thinking. It's not about you hoping. It's not even about you having faith that you can do it. It's about you understanding that you can do it. You should be able to pass a polygraph or a lie detector test that says, I have not done this thing, but I understand that I can, and I'm about to do this thing. That's the level of conviction that will come when you flip that switch. So make sure that you have an understanding, not just of what you're doing and why you're doing it, but it is that simple. It's not a complex thing. You make a decision right now of what you're going to do. And if you don't know what you're going to do, take a moment, reflect, get off your phone, get off social media, get off the TV, go outside and take a moment and just think, what is it that I want? Because you don't want to think that you know what you want, because it's not what you want. It's what somebody else wants, and you saw that they wanted it. Make sense? I have a more eloquent way that I usually say that, but long story short, you have to want what you want because you want it, not because somebody else that you know wants it or thinks that they want it. If that makes any sense. But that's all for today's video. Again, I said it was going to be a short video, and it is nowhere near short. No questions this week. No questions this week, but I am, again, doing the masterclass. I'm refining this thing. I'm giving so much value, and I'm getting better each week. And by me getting better, that means each person that shows up. Now, granted, I can say this, but I've also been told this. That's why I'm happy. Like, I'm helping real people make that shift from employee to entrepreneur, not just with the framework and the steps they need, but to shift that mindset so they can actually feel good and excited about showing up and doing the work. So although it's a subtle plug, but it's still a direct plug, because it's not going to necessarily be free or live much longer. I'm building this out. I'm making sure I get it damn near perfect. And then at that point, I'm running it up. So get in while you can now. Click the link below. It's going to walk you through an assessment to see exactly where you are in your entrepreneurial journey. And chances are you're going to have a link for the masterclass. Or again, you can just reach out to me at kyle.jerome.carter on Instagram, and I'll send you the link. But with that being said, I'm going to end the episode here. I want you to go into this week excited about what you're going to execute. Don't think you can try it, do it. You hear me? You watching this, you can do what you put your mind to. I promise you. So that being said, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. If you haven't hit the subscribe button at the bottom, click that for me, please. Leave a comment or like, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you.